As the adventurers traversed the dark, web-laden tunnels of the Underdark, their torchlight flickered upon a grotesque amalgamation. A towering spider-bodied monstrosity with a torso and upper body of a wickedly grinning drow. The ominous figure stood poised on spindly legs, its multifaceted eyes gleaming with a menacing intelligence. The party felt a chill creep down their spines as the Drider hissed a guttural warning, venom dripping from its fangs. A palpable aura of danger surrounded the creature, its very presence exuding a blend of eerie fascination and dread. With a malicious grin, the Drider raised a wicked curved sword, ready to defend its territory against these intruders who had stumbled into its domain within the depths of a subterranean world. In today's video, we are talking about the Driders. Hello and welcome to Dungeon Deep Dive, where we talk about all things D&D monsters, from monsters and their lore to their publication history, where they originated, and how you could use them in your D&D games. In today's video, we are going over the drow-like creatures that are created from high-powered drow, failing their tests set upon them by Lolth herself, the Driders. These monstrosities made their first appearance in the vast D&D universe in the 1980s first edition Advanced D&D module, Queen of the Demon-Wed Pits. In the module, they are described as a cross between a giant spider and a drow. The torso, head and arms of a pale bloated drow, sprouting 8 spider-like legs from its body. It says that the Drider is a special creation of Lolth's magic, where drow of promising ability reach a certain level of power. Lolth will summon them and put them through a specially devised test. The drow that fail become Driders. The transformation is nothing if not agonizing for the drow, and once the transformation is complete, they are completely shunned from their communities. They do not, however, lose any intelligence they had before they became a Drider. They retain whatever drow abilities it possessed before the transformation. Therefore, all Driders do have magical and clerical abilities. In first edition, depending on the gender of the drow will depend on whether the Drider will have magical or clerical abilities. If the unfortunate drow was a female, they would have clerical spells and abilities of a 7th level cleric. But if the drow was a male, then they would have magical abilities of a 6th to 8th level magic user. Alongside this, they also gain the spells that drows naturally inherit, with the following spells being Dancing Lights, Darkness, Detect Magic, Fairy Fire, Known Alignment, and Levitate. Female Driders, however, can also cast Clairvoyance, Detect Lie, Dispel Magic, and Suggestion spells once a day. Driders have been known to be wielders of longswords and axes from time to time, but are always seen with a wicked longbow slung over their back. But if these weapons are not available to use at the time, then they have a nasty bite attack that could poison their target or even paralyze them. They also later on featured in the article Neymar and Friends in Polyhedron number 30 that details a Drider male named Dayron, and then in another article in Dragon Magazine number 129 called Entering the Drider's Web. Later on in the second edition, Driders made their appearance in the 1989 Monstrous Compodium Volume 2. Nothing's really changed from first edition to second edition, only that it states that they are extremely violent and favor blood over all types of food. Driders then made a reappearance in the 1993 Monster Manual, and it actually states that people tend to get face spiders confused with Driders, which I feel is a big mistake, because I feel Driders are way more dangerous than face spiders. In this very same edition, we get a book called The Drow of the Underdark, which gives a great detailed description about drows and the drow society. It actually gives us details on the kind of tests that Lolth would set upon her drow. These tests would be the test of loyalty, where a relative or ally of the drow to be tested is granted a vision by Lolth, claiming that the subject of the test has turned against her and must be slain in an ambush. As the attack begins, the subject hears Lolth's voice telling them that she is being tested, and that she must be willing to slay an ally at Lolth's command. Another test is the test of strength. This is a very simple combat test against a rival drow or a monster of power level or greater of the subject of the test. Defeat or showing mercy to the foe results in failure of the test, although these are the most common tests of Lolth. They are also the least important. Other tests that the drow must occasionally endure include the test of lies, where the subject must manipulate certain individuals revealed to her by the voice of Lolth in believing specific falsehoods. Even under threat and torture, she must continue to make these lies fully believable. Then there's the test of metal, where the drow in a confined space is abruptly covered with swarms of venomous spiders. She must then extricate herself without harming any of the arachnids and survive their poisonous bites in the process. I feel like that one's fucking brutal. Then there is the test of doubt. The drow is stripped of many or even all of her powers, including her racial abilities and spellcasting. This degradation can even include the sudden acquisition of negative levels. In a few instances, the drow is actually turned into a drider or another creature, as though she had already failed the test. A drow must not only survive, but thrive in the weakened state, often for days, weeks, or even longer, without losing a single bit of faith in Lolth. Only the most powerful and highly placed drow suffer this test, and those who pass are stronger for it. Although I will state, it says any levels that they gain of their newfound vulnerabilities, like say if they gained a level in rogue or something while they were trying to survive, that level does not count over to their multi-classing if they get turned back. There are actually a bunch of new spells in this book that only drow can cast as well. One being actual drider shape, where you can take the form and the abilities of a drider. So it's basically polymorph or animal shape from druids. You could also be a drider as a playable character if your character is a drow and you've taken the vow of the Spider Queen Vile feat. This feat grants you immunity to poison and you gain a +5 insight bonus on the charisma check. And you can prevent any single vermin within 30 feet of you to attack you. If you succeed, the affected vermin cannot attack you for 24 hours. Also, you can expend a rebuke undead attempt to rebuke or command the vermin. And this ability functions like a rebuke undead except that it affects vermin. Vermin being like spiders and smaller arachnid creatures. You also gain the ability to spit a wad of toxic fluid a number of times a day equal to 3 plus your constitution bonus. And this will deal 1d6 of acid damage and the target needs to make a fortitude save or take 1d4 points of strength damage. If for whatever reason you don't hold up to the vow of Lolth, there is a chance that you will be transformed into a Twidentia or a Drider and lose all memory of your life before the transformation. Now they get a small section in the 3rd edition monster manual and are described as bloodthirsty creatures that lurk in the depths of the earth looking for warm-blooded victims of any kind to feed upon. A book then came out in the 2003 3.5 edition called Savage Species, where it shows Driders of both playable race and class. Driders then appeared again in the 3.5 edition of the D&D Monster Manual and in Dragon Magazine 312 with an article called Ecology of the Drider. This article gives descriptions on how the Driders are made, why Driders exist, and that they have an uncontrollable hunger for flesh and grow an insatiable hatred for the drow. You also get a small description on what a Drider's lair would look like. It says Driders prefer seclusion, where they can indulge their bitterness and plan grand, mad schemes of vengeance against Lolth's faithful. They might maintain the same dens for decades, living like murderous hermits. They genuinely seek intelligent creatures only to consume them. Driders often haunt fungal forests and subterranean lakes, places that attract humanoids seeking food or water. They even linger near drow communities, preying on the irregular patrols. They made an appearance in the 2006 Fiendish Codex 1, Hordes of the Abyss, where the 333rd lair of the Abyss, Thanatos, is filled with undead drow and driders now loyal to Orcus. I feel an undead drider would be absolutely terrifying. Then moving on to 4th edition, Driders appear in the monster manual as well as some variants to the standard Drider. Although in the previous editions it stated being transformed into a Drider is a curse and an exilable offense, in 4th edition it is described as the Driders are servants of Lolth, gifted with the semblance of their god's grotesque form. We have a variant called the Drider Fang Lord that likes to ensnare its foes in its web and rush to have a quick bite attack that deals 1d4 damage and an ongoing 10 poison damage. If the bite isn't an option, they do have a great sword that they carry to deal some nasty damage. We also have a Drider variant called the Drider Shadow Spinner, and if you are captured by one of these creatures, they will unleash a barrage of slashing darkness attacks on you with their short sword until you are dead, escaped, or the Drider is forced to shift its attention somewhere else. You also get a spell called Cloud of Darkness, where it can place a orb of darkness in place until the end of the Drider Shadow Spinner's next turn. The cloud blocks line of sight for all creatures except for the Shadow Spinner, and any creature entirely within the cloud is blind until it exits. In the 4th edition module Revenge of the Giants, we get another variant of a Drider called the Battle Lord, which unfortunately is just an ever so slightly tuned up version of the Fang Lord, but I would have loved to have seen a more unique version, but never mind. Now moving on to 5th edition, where they made their appearance in the 5e Monster Manual, it reverts to the 4th edition quote that being turned into a Drider is a gift, not a curse, back to it being a sign of failure to Lolth. It does say that there are some Driders that will sit on the outskirts of drow societies and be used as a reminder of the power that Lolth has over them and their communities. Okay, so we've gone over the Drider through the entirety of D&D's history, gone over their lore and what they are. Now let's go over what they actually can do. With the standard Drider, they have an AC of 19 and 123 hit points and have a walking speed of 30 feet and a climbing speed of 30 feet. They have dark vision of a massive 120 feet, so there's no hiding in darkness to get away from these babies. They get to keep their Fey ancestry that they had before the transformation that gives them advantage on saving throws against being charmed and magical sleep, as well as the ability to cast a couple of spells without any components. As many times as they like, they have the ability to cast dancing lights once a day, and they can cast darkness and fairy fire. Obviously they get the spider climb ability that lets them climb difficult surfaces without needing to make an ability check because they're half spider. Inherited from their pastoral lives, they also get the sunlight sensitivity, where while in sunlight the Drider has disadvantage on attack rolls as well as perception checks that rely on sight. And finally they have a web walking ability that lets them, as the name says, walk on webs with no restrictions. Now for their actions, they get a multi-attack where it can make 3 attacks either with its longsword or its longbow, or it can replace them with one of its bite attacks. The bite attack has a +6 to hit and a 5-foot reach, and on a hit it deals 1d4 piercing damage and an additional 2d8 poison damage. I kind of would have liked there to be a check for poison or maybe even paralysis like the previous versions. The longsword they have is also a +6 to hit and a 5-foot reach and deals 1d8 +3 slashing damage or 1d10 +3 if they choose to wield the sword with both hands. They also have the longbow to make pop shots at range with. The bow has a +6 to hit with a range bracket of 120 feet to 600 feet. And on a hit deals 1d8 +3 piercing damage and 1d8 poison damage. And they do give a spellcaster variant in the 5e monster manual, so I've crafted a little stat block for this type of Drider. I gave it an AC of 17 and 117 hit points and are slightly more intelligent and wiser than the standard Drider. They also have a lot more spells at their disposal. They can cast Poison Spray and Thaumaturgy at will. They can cast Bane, Detect, Sanctuary, Hold Person, Silence, Clairvoyance, Dispel Magic, Divination, and Freedom of Movement. Because at this point you guys know what I'm like, I've made a stat 5e stat block for the Shadow Spinner from 4th edition. It has an AC of 18 and 125 hit points, and it has the same abilities as the standard Drider, but I've given it the Shadow Stealth ability that lets it hide in dim light or darkness as a bonus action. I've also given it ability to shoot a web as an action, where it can shoot the web at the target in a range of 30 to 60 feet, and as an action the Drider can pull the target up to 5 feet towards it. I just like to punish my players. I've also given it a Stinger because why not? The Stinger has a +6 to hit and a 5-foot reach and deals 1d6 piercing damage and 2d8 poison, and the target must make a DC 14 con save or become paralyzed. Because I'm not totally evil, I've let them try and save again from the paralyzation at the end of their turn. I feel like these guys are extremely scary to encounter while venturing into the Underdark. The party venturing in could encounter a small cave in a wall that is absolutely littered with bones and corpses, and at the back of the cave is a huge Drider in the corner, and if discovered, the Drider will attack with all its spider minions with it. Or you can even have a drow in your party that is starting to get visions from Lolth about a test that they need to perform, and you and your party need to find a way to stop this from happening and not let her become a Drider. But that is all I have for you guys today on the Drider. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all found this video helpful, and if there's anything I've missed, I would love to hear about it in the comments. What monster should I cover next? Let me know in the comments below and I'll add your comment at the end of the video. Thank you to Blessed Dark for the suggestion on the Driders. I really appreciate it. You can find links to all my socials down below to keep up to date with the videos. Thank you again, and I'll see you all next week.